Dahlia Kinsey went into nutrition to help underserved communities. But as time went on, Dahlia started to realize that much of the conventional wisdom around health ignored the needs of those very communities. So Dahlia took a different approach, one that is sensitive to the experiences of people of color and queer people. From Connecticut Public Radio, this is Disrupted. I'm Kalila Brown-Dean. This hour, we're talking about the wellness industry and how it can be more inclusive. Later in the show, we'll talk about skincare and hair care with two local women of color who are entrepreneurs in the space. But up first, Dahlia Kinsey. Dahlia is registered dietitian and creator of the Body Liberation for All podcast, and also author of Decolonizing Wellness, a QT BIPOC-centered guide to escape the diet trap, heal your self-image, and achieve body liberation. I'm so excited to have you on Disrupted. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Talk to us about your journey into this wellness space and what led you to say, this is the passion, this is the calling, this is the liberation work that you are doing.
When I first was interested in studying nutrition, I mistakenly believed that it was going to be about lifting people up, empowering people, moving barriers out of the way so the body could heal itself. That was just my assumption. Looking back, I'm like, what was that assumption based on? But that's how I was raised to relate to food from my grandmother's perspective anyway. And she was Afro-Cuban and really felt connected to food as a healing tool. But in reality, the training was so focused on weight management, even when it wasn't stated explicitly, that's what it was about. And so many days I went home from university feeling like such a sucker, like I was paying to be insulted and ridiculed every day. Because every time there was any mention of Black folks and poor health outcomes, the story was, all of these outcomes were our fault, and at the root was a failure to understand very simple things. Simple things like how to feed yourself and how to feed your children. That was the framing. And didn't matter how many times I and the one other Black person in class would try to explain, it doesn't even make sense. These conclusions you're jumping to, you're assuming Black people are a monolith and we all have the same food culture. Where are you getting these assumptions from? We were always being invalidated. And even though I had a lifetime of experience being a Black person, because they had a piece of paper in front of them, they felt like, oh, no, I'm sure you're mistaken. What do you know about being Black and eating food? Never mind that you've done it every day since birth. So it took a lot of work after graduation to detangle the white supremacy from the legitimate information I had studied and to see how to synthesize those things to actually help the folks that I wanted to help in the first place, which would be anybody who wasn't given access to the tools they need to live whatever their version of their best life is, not to try and parent people or save people, but to help other people sort through fact versus fiction and what's true for your body versus this is just foolishness and marketing that's stopping you from listening to your greatest resource, which is your own body.
Talk to us a little about the space that you're working in of, yes, I want to address how this shows up for Black people, but I also want to not assume that Black folks are monolithic, as you said. There are all of these other factors that play into us. Unpack that a little bit for us of, yes, there's systemic issues, but also diversity within community.
Right. I myself, my dad is American and my mother is half Cuban and half Jamaican. So already just in our household, there was a lot of differences as far as food culture goes. And my mom had a similar experience. So when someone says, oh, it's the diet, it always has been suspect to us. Like, what do you mean? Can you define that? Then you think about genetic diversity within Black folks. It's very odd how we've been grouped together when, even as far as ethnic groups go, there are so many different ways to show up in the world as a Black person. It's so cultural and it's so linked to the transatlantic slave trade that all of that distinctness is erased and glossed over. People really and truly do not believe there is any difference. But what is significant to me in research and just anecdotally, seeing how a Black client or patient will move from another country where they never had to exist in predominantly white spaces, or they were never asked to conform to cultural norms that are not their own, and they didn't have any issues with blood pressure, and they didn't have any significant health problems to speak of, and they move here, and 3, 4, 5 years in, they're struggling with high blood pressure. They're struggling with blood sugar management. Stress has a way bigger role in health outcomes than people frequently acknowledge, and people absolutely don't, generally speaking, acknowledge how much pressure a marginalized person is under and how frayed your nervous system feels almost every single day. And of course, how you're raised, intergenerational trauma, that all affects how intense your reactions to stress are and what trauma responses can do, even to blood sugar management, is pretty wild. All the time, you see in people who already have the diagnosis of diabetes, non food events having huge impacts on their blood sugar. It isn't always about the food. And you can eat a beautiful diet full of whole food and still have to deal with social determinants of health. You generally don't get to choose where you live when you're small. Okay, at some point in life, we hope you get to choose, but you don't get to speak to city planners and express the importance of neighborhoods being walkable. So much of our health outcomes are influenced by factors we didn't have any direct control over. But if somebody assumes that an entire group of people is ignorant, you won't even think to factor those things in. You won't even think, like, oh, well, generally, if there's something toxic, what side of town are we going to put it in? Are we going to put it in the most affluent side of town? Or are we going to put it in the side of town where people are typically ignored when they express concerns to like public health officials or other people in power? It's insidious to keep blaming somebody for a problem that is systemic, but you keep saying the solution is individual and refusing to acknowledge other factors. And only in 2020 did I see for the first time a public health outlet acknowledge that racism is a pre-existing health condition. It's undermining your well-being. It's undermining your immune system. It's undermining your ability to fight inflammation. And in my personal life, all the invalidation I've experienced in healthcare settings has led to so many misdiagnoses and so much delayed treatment. And I have what is considered good access to healthcare in the US. And I recently, this week on Tuesday, found out about another misdiagnosis that's led to improper treatment. And I had to come out of pocket and go to a specialist for that and had to have access to telehealth. 20 years ago, I just would have continued with this misdiagnosis. And the healthcare providers, the psychologists I interacted with, acknowledged for the first time, I've never had this experience in a healthcare setting, that because people, previous providers, were not considering context and the impact that exposure to racism in early childhood has on you, that it is considered an adverse childhood experience. And those experiences tend to continue to affect you for the rest of your life and how your nervous system functions. And so my baseline stress levels are always at a 10, and that's impacting my health across the board.
I want for our listeners to sit for a moment with this reality. You are a healthcare person. You are very literate in health, all the dimensions of health. You are a registered dietitian who is talking about wellness in a holistic sense. And with all of that education, all of that experience, all of that knowledge and sense of agency, you still experience these adverse health outcomes. So it always makes me think about the people who don't have that, the people for whom shame and stigma is keeping them sick. Because
Yes.
they say, when I go to a healthcare provider, they don't want to listen to what I have to say, or it's always filtered through this idea of weight that, yes, is important, but as you're saying, is connected to so much. The other piece of your work that I think is so critical here is that you are talking about groups of people who are often marginalized, stigmatized, overlooked, mistreated in multiple dimensions of their lived experiences
Mm.
and the ways in which their identities, plural, can have an impact on that relationship. You are the author of this book, Decolonizing Wellness, a QT BIPOC centered guide to escape the diet trap, heal your self image, and achieve body liberation. Let's start first with the term, because some people may say, listen, I've heard LGBTQ, I've heard BIPOC, maybe they haven't heard QT BIPOC. Tell us about that term and how it represents the work that you are doing to say, these things happen across communities. Let's broaden our understanding. What does the term mean?
It's queer and trans, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, because there is an added layer of complexity when you're trying to find a place where you can enjoy a sense of belonging and just be and not feel like you have to stay hyper vigilant and do the self monitoring that most of us do. Anybody who is queer and Black in the US knows how intense the homophobia and transphobia can be in a lot of different Black communities. And then so many times you go into a queer space hoping to be embraced, and then you have to deal with racism and lack of compassion, and sometimes being hypersexualized. It shows up in a lot of different ways that all force you to spend more time in a agitated state, nervous system wise, just constantly feeling wired and unable to give your nervous system a break because you are constantly having to scan your environment for safety and try to predict who could be a problem, who do you need to draw away from? And it really exacerbates feelings of isolation. And when you look at the blue zones or areas on the planet where people tend to live a long time and a fairly happy, healthy life at the, second chapter of life or almost the end, right? Places where people are still walking around and socializing when they're about to be 100. In these areas, it's been shown that social connections have a massive impact on longevity. So if you struggle and fight to find spaces where you can just be and know that people will relate to you as an individual and stop forcing you to conform or to mask, that's a huge stressor on your body and it shows up in a lot of ways. And what people frequently forget is that people don't have one marginalized identity at a time. I mean, some people do, but it doesn't feel that common. So there are many Black folks who are not just queer, they're also neurodivergent, they're also living with a chronic illness, they're also living with some kind of disability that requires accommodations. And all of these identities come with so much additional baggage and pressure because of how society relates to these identities. So often, having a disability would be easy breezy if the world around you was not so resistant to giving you accommodations. You and I both have eyeglasses on. Being able to see, that's a major function of life. So if you look at how the ADA even defines a disability, this is a disability, but this is an accepted accommodation that we are wearing. Without these glasses, I wouldn't be able to drive. I wouldn't be able to use my computer. I wouldn't have been able to function in classrooms. But because the world has decided vision problems is no big deal, this disability barely affects us.
Coming up, more with registered dietitian and author Dahlia Kinsey. Dahlia talks about why it's important to find things that make us feel good.
Anytime you are sitting and laughing with friends, you are feeling cozy in a chair with a book, you are giving your nervous system a break.
And later, we learn about skincare and hair care.
I get to go to work and make women feel beautiful, make them feel good about themselves.
This is Disrupted. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Disrupted. I'm Kalila Brown-Dean. This hour, we're talking about how wellness can work for people from a diverse range of backgrounds. We're still joined by Dahlia Kinsey, registered dietitian and author of Decolonizing Wellness, a QT BIPOC-centered guide to escape the diet trap, heal your self-image, and achieve body liberation. We continue the conversation by asking what Dahlia has learned through this work.
I've learned that as much as I would love it if I could eyeball someone and know, here's a safe person, here's one of my people, that is not a thing. And being resilient enough to continually set boundaries and go out of my way to build community with people that do resonate, that is a form of self-care that lights me up. And to thrive, I have to prioritize that. And I've never been told, well, I'll give the exception of these psychologists. They were pretty fabulous. I've never been told prior to this week that that was fundamental to my physical and mental health. Having those relationships and spending as much time as possible in those spaces. And it isn't always going to be people who look like me, and it isn't always going to be people who share any of my marginalized identities. In that way, it's been heartwarming to know that people are capable of compassion and they don't have to have precisely the same experience to be able to honor your sensitivities and embrace you as a complete, distinct human being instead of assuming that they know things about you because of how you present. Like you mentioned, there are lots of invisible disabilities. If somebody tells you they're suffering from chronic pain or that the lights are too bright or that it's too loud in the room, you have the option to just believe them and support them in making the environment safer for them. And it's been rough because of a history of like lots of bad experiences with folks. But I've been finding that with the help of technology, it's gotten so much easier to find safer spaces. And I remember way back when I was in college being in a class where we were asked if you could have a primary relationship with someone online. And my assumption was no, like these relationships can be nice, but they can't have the same depth. And even back then, the sociology professor is like, no, it can be a primary relationship. But I was doubtful. But I have found in developing relationships with just compassionate, loving people online who I eventually hung out with in person, that can be a saving grace. And these relationships are real and they are valuable. So even if you're in an isolated area, things can and will get better when you have the autonomy to spend more time with people who will accept you as who you are. And even if you have a lot of trauma, that is a possibility. It's not fair how much harder it might be for you to get to that point, but it is possible. And in my experience, it has it has been possible. And it's been very helpful for me to learn and accept that little t trauma is also valid and can impact how you show up wellness wise for yourself and how difficult it is for your body to support you. And just acknowledging that you deserve that compassion. It's okay if you need things that other people don't need, and acknowledging that part of your wellness picture might be getting to the point where you no longer are putting so much energy into trying to prove to people who don't want to acknowledge your humanity that you are worthy and that you are human. Like, that's still a debate for some people. You've seen all the ableism that's just been so vicious since 2020. It's always been bad, but people essentially have made it clear in a lot of spaces, if you can't make it on your own, you shouldn't even exist. That's been the through line. You shouldn't even exist. That's obviously not true, but if you've heard it enough, part of you might think that it is. And what I have done and what I encourage other people to do is spend more time investing in your relationship with yourself and with pleasure and comfort, because so many times that is going to be what moves the needle for you, not being harder on yourself and trying to conform to external standards, whether that's someone else saying that being at this weight means you're well, or someone else saying that being able to be productive, and that's in air quotes, in the work environment is what determines whether or not you're functional and have value. Trying to spend more time figuring out what's going to make you feel calm and regulated and like it's okay to be you and like you don't have to explain yourself. Try to prioritize that a little bit more, because it can be really surprising how many things that changes. It can impact your appetite. It can impact how you start trying to feel sated and satisfied in different areas of life. It can impact inflammation. It can impact your sleep. Sleep impacts hormone regulation. I mean, there's so many pieces, but everybody just wants to talk about weight and being within what people consider a healthy BMI and being well. Those are not synonymous terms. And you get to decide what wellness looks like to you.
I think it's so important that we often, and by we I mean as a society, as communities, talk about the need to show compassion to others, or the need to be understanding or to be empathetic in service to others. But what you're reminding us is that we need to be compassionate to ourselves as well. We need to extend that grace to ourselves. The older I get, Dahlia, the more I'm clear about boundaries in my life in support of my wellness, of not having to explain that if I've had a really busy week at work, I need that time on a Saturday to just sit in silence and be okay with that and not have to define it or justify it, but to know that that's what fuels me so I can show up for myself without needing to justify that. My last question to you will feel like a big question, but I want people to understand that, yes, these challenges are big. Yes, they are nested, they are structural, they are situational. And often when people encounter those really big challenges, it can be so overwhelming that they go, well, there's nothing I can do, right? How can I resist that? How can I fight that? Or they feel defeated when we don't necessarily realize that progress sometimes comes in fits and starts, but that commitment and the continuous trying make a difference. What's your last word to people who may be listening to this and thinking, where do I start? Or how can I commit in a way that puts me on a path, even if I haven't figured it all out?
Start questioning the idea that you need to do more or that you need to do better, and start looking for ways in which you could do less and looking for the things that make you feel good. Because anytime you are sitting and laughing with friends, you are feeling cozy in a chair with a book, you are giving your nervous system a break, and you need that. You deserve that.
I could listen to you all day. This has felt very therapeutic to me, so thank you for not charging me a copay, although you are worthy of all of the things and the work that you are doing. But I so appreciate your commitment and your ability to understand the ways that people are just trying to do the very best they can and what it means to support people, but support ourselves in that journey as well. Dahlia Kenzie is registered dietitian, creator of the Body Liberation for All podcast, and author of Decolonizing Wellness, a QT BIPOC-centered guide to escape the diet trap, heal your self-image, and achieve body liberation. Thank you, Dahlia.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, local entrepreneurs discuss skincare, hair care, and the often harmful products that are marketed to consumers.
Overall, just don't trust these corporations. Don't trust all the gimmicky ads that you see on TikTok.
This is Disrupted. Stay with us. Welcome back to Disrupted. I'm Kalila Brown-Dean. This hour, we're discussing how people approach wellness and the ways that it doesn't always meet the needs of underserved communities. We now talk with two local women of color who are entrepreneurs in the space, and they're working to bring more inclusive products and services to their stores. Serena Simmons is owner of Holistic. It's a skin and hair care boutique in Middletown, Connecticut. Mariah Gonzalez is owner of House of Vanity. It's a skincare and wellness studio in Cheshire, Connecticut. I'm so excited to have both of you on the show today. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we're excited.
Both of you have made major pivots in your career. Mariah, you were in culinary school and made the pivot into this industry. Serena, you are an educator, a science educator, and also working with students across the state. Let's start with you, Mariah. What was that decision to pivot from culinary school into the beauty and wellness industry?
Yeah, to put it plain, I was tired of working for men. I wanted to work for women. I wanted to feel good about the changes that I was making in the world. I feel like in culinary, it's a male-dominated field. Every day I go in, I put a uniform on, and it wasn't as fulfilling as my career and my role is now. I get to go to work and make women feel beautiful, make them feel good about themselves.
And I hear something similar, Serena, this idea of being able to create something for yourself that also benefits other people and connects in a different way. Tell us about your pivot. And you are still an educator at heart. Now I feel like you're educating people about wellness and skincare in different ways. Tell us about your pivot from being a science educator to now running your own business in the wellness and beauty space.
So I thought about becoming a certified biology teacher, and I was researching like the different avenues and like alternative routes I can go through to get certified. And then I was also thinking about starting my own business. So I was choosing between the two, and I actually started taking business classes. I wanted to open my own store. I wanted to develop my own brand. I was tired of going in stores and not finding decent like hair care and skincare products. I was looking at the ingredients and I'm like, there's like 50 things, and skincare and hair care should be simple and natural. So I wanted to create something that I can trust and that I can use.
Mariah, I hear something similar in your journey as well, because before running your own business and opening your own space, you worked for a corporate spa chain. And one of the things that you've mentioned in working in that space, yes, you learned a lot about the industry and the business, but you also noticed the gaps in how melanated skin, particular skin types and conditions were viewed, or in some ways not viewed, right? Of thinking it's a one size fit all approach. What did working in that space teach you about that, but also make you say, listen, we need to do something that is not treating Black and brown skin as different and less than, but something that we need to pay attention to? What did you learn from that part of your journey?
Yeah, I think the lack of education surrounded by melanated skin, especially working for a corporate, the majority of women that I was working on didn't look like me. They weren't women of color. And I think a lot of the women of color who would come in for services, I remember this one specific example of a Black woman who came into the clinic, and she took one look at me and said, "You're not qualified to work on my skin." And ever since then, I made it my life's journey to educate myself, because in her questioning, my inability to work on her skin just made me feel very self-conscious of the work I was doing.
For both of you, why I think your work is so important is that you are able to tap into the vulnerability that many women feel, and a feeling like, I deserve to have access, but can I trust the access that I've had? Because many of them have had these bad experiences, and many of you as providers have also had those experiences of people questioning you or doubting you. So
Sure.
Let me say that and center that. You are here as people. You are here as women who are on a journey of fulfilling your own calling in the ways that you do that. And you are on a journey of empowering women to say yes to themselves in ways that this world and this society does not always provide space for women to do.
No.
So let me ask you this as well, Mariah. Share with me the experience or the moment of when you said, I can bring something different to skincare and to that space that is different from what you see in the corporate space, or different from what you heard from customers that you were working with every day. Was there a defining moment when you said, I can do something different here?
Yeah, going back to corporate, there was a skincare brand. There was one specific product, being sunscreen, that was marketed as skin inclusive. We measure skin color in Fitzpatrick's in skincare on a Fitzpatrick scale. That sunscreen that was supposed to be marketed for all Fitzpatrick, it only worked on my clients 1 through 3 Fitzpatrick. So my darker skin girlies, they could not use it because they had a white cast on their skin. I think that was a pivotal moment in my career as like an esthetician, because I'm like, you guys are marketing this as a skin inclusive product and it really isn't. So it makes me wonder, like, who are you testing these products on? These products are not tested on women of color.
Serena, I'm nodding along because I distinctly remember trying a particular sunscreen product on a vacation. I'm not naming names. It was a product that everyone was buzzing about. And I went on vacation, had this product, walked outside and looked like a ghost. And it's embarrassing, right? Because then it's almost impossible to get that off. And you know in your work how important sunscreen is for all skin types. And how many people say, I'm so afraid of the white cast, I'll just go without, and the damaging effects of that. And it makes me think about some of the messages that we encounter as young girls, as young women, as women of a particular, throughout the life cycle, those messages about beauty, about worth, and about the ways that we affirm that. For you in your journey of education and now doing the work that you're doing about skin and hair care, were there particular messages or moments that you encountered that made you think about beauty and wellness in this different kind of way?
My natural hair, or my hair in general, has always been a struggle. I've never gotten a relaxer or perm, always been natural. I personally struggle doing my hair. I would like to do like protective styles, but the braiding hair has chemicals, the gel has chemicals, straightening your hair too much causes it to fall out. So through my natural hair journey, going to stores, looking at products, and then again seeing these ingredients that I'm researching on my phone, and I'm like, that's not good. That's not good. That's a formaldehyde releasing preservative, or these chemicals are banned in so many other countries, but our government allows them to be marketed towards us. Just the frustration of just trying to be natural and finding natural hair care products was very frustrating. I'm just like, hey, I have a science background. I could just make my own products.
Hearing you talk about the chemicals that are in products and, all of the things that we are taught are good for us, maybe are not so good for us. And I'm thinking of their number of scientific studies, long-term studies of when people put chemical treatments in their hair, given how porous the scalp is, how that shows up on brain scans years down the road and all of those things. And for the two of you, I think we may have a lot of listeners who say, hey, I never realized it was that deep. I never realized that it was that challenging. When I go into a drugstore or to a big cosmetic store and I see 12 shades, then I think like, oh, well, that's inclusive, right? Mm-hmm. And you both are looking at me and shaking your head like, absolutely not. It's built on a particular type. Mariah, what would you say to listeners who are somewhat surprised that Black skin, brown skin, indigenous skin, they can say it really makes a difference where, someone may come from a more Eurocentric background, and when they tan, we're the same complexion. And so their question may be, why does this matter when you're thinking about health and wellness and the work that you're doing? What do you say to people who may not be as familiar with those different skin types in the work?
Yeah, I think educating yourself as of recent years, in terms of like aesthetics, there are trade shows. There are trade shows that you can attend where there's like seminars. There are podcasts that you can listen to. There's so many more resources available now. I think you not understanding the broad spectrum of color in the skincare industry, it's a responsibility that you have as a professional in our industry. You're doing a disservice to a demographic, an entire demographic of women who, by the way, are the most consumers in our industry. So you'd be doing a disservice not only to your customers, but to your business.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea of, yes, there is the customer-facing piece of that, or the client-facing piece. And then there also is the economic piece. And I'm thinking of it, Serena, in the work that you do. There are so many so-called natural products that are out. And you like to keep things simple, to say, here are some core ingredients that you should think about so that, yes, from the customer or client perspective, you're getting what you need, but also from the economic perspective, you're not wasting your money on things. Are there particular core products in your business that you say, this is something that I really love or something that I really promote because you're able to see the benefits? Like, where should people start when they're thinking about those products and ingredients?
So shea butter is multifaceted. So I tell people when they're shopping, like, hey, if you need a moisturizer, you can use this all over your body. It's really natural, it's safe, and you can use it on your hair too. Aloe vera gel, which is also multifaceted, so people can use it on their scalp, they can use it to condition their hair, they can use it on their skin. in summertime to relieve sunburn, all different types of things. Some people like essential oils so much that they put it on their body and it has a relaxing effect for them.
Tell me about turmeric. I hear about it all the time. It seems to pop up in all kinds of things, whether it's teas or topical creams. Are you a fan of turmeric, and should we be thinking about that in the regimen?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because I use turmeric in a lot of my products. Turmeric, lemon, ginger soap is very popular. I use it in shea butter and face scrubs. But yes, turmeric is a very powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory ingredient, and it's been used for centuries in India. I've had Indian women come in my store and be drawn to like different turmeric products. It's very popular amongst African American, Black and brown people because it's good for hyperpigmentation and fading any acne scarrings and things that are common in melanated skin. So I love it. I think everybody should use it and consume it, drink it, put it on your food, all that.
I'm making a list of what I need to do after the show. I often hear from people that, this is a really expensive service, or treatments are really expensive. And I understand that, particularly in this economy. And I also understand your skin is something that will be with you for the entirety of your life. When you think about the kinds of treatments or approaches that you think are essential for people in order to be able to commit to that kind of maintenance, but also the kind of affirmation that people have when they're able to take care of themselves, are there particular services or treatments that you say people should prioritize or at least see as a first step in that journey?
As much as I would love to see more clients for facial in my clinic, I think prioritizing home care is really, I like to use the 80-20 rule. 80% what you do at home is going to impact you more than the 20% that you see me in clinic for. I also am moving towards becoming more of a holistic esthetician. What you consume makes a huge difference. It's not only what you topically put on your skin anymore.
As I'm listening to the two of you, I'm thinking back to when I was a younger person. And it all seemed so simple back then. We used all these products that we probably had no business using, right? Like the apricot scrub that now it's like, oh my gosh,
don't
your
get me
skin
started
barrier,
on that.
right? It's ripped off your face. But that was the thing that everyone was using, or everyone was using Seabreeze. And again, all of these really harsh things that people were putting onto their skin. And now, there's this young woman in my life, I think she's 12, and she's telling me about her 10-step skincare routine, and she has to go to this retailer to buy all of these things. And I'm thinking, you're 12. What are we doing? What do you say to young people who want to take greater ownership over their skincare, their scalp care, and their wellness, and are often influenced by the marketing and the buzz of all of these things? Thinking about who you were as young women, thinking about the work that you do now, what would you say to young people? And I'll start with you, Serena.
I am very honest when I'm marketing my products, but I will say advice to younger people, just don't trust these corporations. Don't trust all the gimmicky ads that you see on TikTok.
Right. I think of that often when we look at celebrities or influencers, and you'll see all of these gorgeous, beautiful photos of people, not realizing how filters could be used, or the retouching and the airbrushing. And so when everyday people see textured skin, it's like, oh my goodness, what happened? Given the work that you do, the industry that you're working in, what would your message be to young people about resisting some of that pressure and really embracing their wellness and well-being?
There are celebrities who have written in their contracts that they have to look a certain way. They don't want any visible pores. They're filtered. They are heavily filtered. I don't think they're setting realistic expectations. And it makes me sad just to know that there are young women who are looking up to these celebrities that are setting like these unrealistic expectations. Some of these influencers they're getting paid to push a product.
And they're getting paid very well.
They're getting paid very
products.
well.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't compare yourself to women who are making these like false narrative of what a product will do to their skin.
My last question to both of you, you work in spaces that can be challenging, but can also be so rewarding and affirming to do something that you love, to be able to bring happiness to other people while pursuing your purpose. So let me ask both of you, Serena, you first. When you think about 10 years from now and the things that you will be doing and the impact that you will have, what excites you the most about the possibility of what you're doing?
What excites me the most would be expanding my brand, expanding my products. I also want to get into traveling and going to events more geared toward my demographics, like events like centered around African American women and sororities, Black sororities too. Mm-hmm. Events like maybe at HBCUs or like Black and brown areas. Mm-hmm. I also look forward to just educating people on skincare. I do work at a high school and I've worked in education for like 10 years. So something I would love to do is teach young girls about skincare, give them cheap alternatives, tell them like, hey, like you can just apply apple cider vinegar, a diluted version of that, or coconut oil, or just give them like really simple natural alternatives so they don't think that they have to spend so much money.
Mariah, what about you? When you think about the future of what you're doing 10 years from now, what excites you?
My passion in education is definitely going to be what my future brings in the next 10 years. I think specifically in Connecticut, there is still a lack of like diversity when it comes to speakers and skincare. I think there's still such a gap in the industry. There are some celebrities, most notably Miss Rihanna, who started a billion-dollar industry off of a huge gap in the market. That's who is like my role model in all of this.
For me, the beauty of entrepreneurship is seeing something not as a problem or as a deficit, but as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And how you both are bringing your skills, your sensitivity and connection to that work to create opportunities that are not just for you individually, but you're creating opportunities for other people and empowering them to pursue their higher selves as well. So we are excited for what is to come for both of you and your businesses and your education. And, you know, on Disrupted, we will be able to say we knew them when 10 years from now. So we wish you both the best. Serena Simmons is owner of Holistic. It's a skin and hair care boutique in Middletown, Connecticut. Mariah Gonzalez is owner of House of Vanity. It's a skincare and wellness studio in Cheshire. Thank you, Mariah and Serena.
Thank you so much for having us.
This episode was produced by Kevin Chang Barnum, Robin Doyon Aiken, Erica McIntosh, and Meg Fitzgerald. Special thanks to our interns Davina Cordeiro and Megan Rodriguez Hawkins. You can listen to more than 250 episodes of Disrupted in our archive, or you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. From Connecticut Public Radio, this is Disrupted. I'm Kalila Brown-Dean. Thanks for listening.
All